Hey everyone, my name is Agent and welcome to shapes.io. Today I am going to show you in 9 FPS a machine that I built that can create any shape. So as you can see, I'm level 100 right now, and these shapes are being generated automatically by a computer operated machine to the right. And the light is green here. The shapes here are set to the input shape. That means that in a little bit you should be able to see these shapes come in. And if the light's green, that means that the shape is being produced. If the light's red, that means it's flushing the system from the old shape, and it takes a little while to remove all the old shape parts. I will show you in a little bit, but if everything goes well, we should be able to see this shape come in a little bit. But keep in mind, of course, the FPS is terrible, so that's because the machine is really big. Also below here is a binary counter that I created. It basically just counts up every second, and as you can see, yeah, that's more than a second for it to switch. So it's really laggy. But as you can, if you can read binary, you can see how many time has elapsed since I created this counter. This machine produces the shapes about every 6 minutes. So every 6 minutes, there you go, shapes are coming in. Every 6 minutes it should produce the shape that you need, and then you unlock the next level. Of course, the throughput has to be bigger every time, so it takes slightly longer every time, so it will probably take around 8 to 10 minutes to get this going. As you can see, it will slowly increase the speed. It's now going at 3.5 and going up. And there's also a second belt here that will start producing them in a second. That's a second factory, which is basically just a clone of the first factory. That will also produce the shape in a little bit. So we can get about 16 throughput here and 16 throughput here, which will be well over 22 to go to the next level. Now we're not going to wait until this next lane is filled up, because that might take a little while. So let's just take a look at the machine that I created over here. And sorry for the bad FPS, but that's just the game being not quite optimized. And there you go, this huge monstrosity. This is actually the machine, and I just made a copy of it right over here. So there's one machine here and one machine here, creating just this single shape. As you can see, the throughput here is 13.4. If we go to the other machine, we can see it's also 13.4, and there's actually like a trash item over there. If we quickly go to the hub, we can see that this line is now also going and slowly increasing. And so we should be able to hit 22 per second in just a little bit. So about 13.4 plus 7 should be 20-ish. Going up to 8, 21, and there we go. Level 100 has been completed. The light turns red. That means it's still producing the previous shape, as can be seen here. And this ridiculous shape that we just got in. Let's just look at the key. Yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous. Is being generated slowly. Let's just quickly go. Oh, I don't have a marker for that, but let's quickly go there and see what's happening in the machine. So as you can see, it's now producing this shape, and particularly this part is producing this top shape, or the bottom shape, I guess. And as you can see, it's feeding stars here, stars there, and the bottom right piece is actually a square, so it's being fed here. So the first thing it does is it filters out everything that's trash over here. So if it's still producing the previous shape, it can trash the previous shape and quickly filter in the new shape Also, it still has a few balancing issues, so you might want to put a few extra balances here and there to keep up with the demands. So yeah, so this is like the first filtering of each quadrant. This is the bottom right quadrant, and I believe this might be, let me see actually. This is still producing old stuff. This is a white triangle. That doesn't help me. That also doesn't help me. That doesn't help me. Good lord. Okay, none of these shapes actually help me figuring out which it is, but I believe that, yeah, this is the bottom left actually. So this is bottom right, bottom left, top left, and top right. So it goes in a counterclockwise direction, going that way. It doesn't really matter actually. So the first thing it does after being sorted so that the correct shapes are coming in is colors are being applied. Here are the painter stations. They take in one paint, two shapes. I use the double painters. Those are the most efficient actually, or those ones. You can also use the quad painter with like a combined shape, but it takes a lot of paint, and in my opinion it's not worth it because creating paint is a lot of work, and I just prefer using the double painters here. The green light means that the painters are active if you have a gray piece in your shape. We don't have one here yet, but if there is a part that does not need to be painted, it is not filtered out to the painters, but it's actually tunneled through to the cutter immediately. That's the second stage of the machine. It's cutting. It will basically cut the shape that we painted into 4 pieces so that we get 4 times the efficiency out of it. So basically 2 painters can just supply a steady stream of shapes. And so we do that for each quadrant. Then we combine all the shapes through these 3 combiner sections. So this one combines bottom parts and this one combines top parts. And then here we combine the whole shape. If we, however, have a hole in our shape, for example, top right, that does not need to be combined, we can filter out those items and those will just be skipping the combiner section, go on the belt and be combined with the left part. If we don't have any top parts at all, this combiner will also be skipped, or if like you don't need to combine anything after these 2 combiners, or like one combiner has done its thing, it will also skip the third combiner and be thrown on this belt. Now you can see here it's producing a lot of garbage which will not make it through. Some of them will make it through because they're the correct shape. The other ones are just filtered out because we don't need them. Unfortunately, it takes a while to flush because there's still old shapes in there from the previous shape still in these machines which have to be flushed out. So we just use a couple filters here, and meanwhile we stack up the shapes that we do need over here that will then be fed up into another combiner, which will basically combine the previous stage. So we have 4 stages, 1 for each layer. This is the top layer, I believe, which gets stacked here on the layer below it. It then moves on here and gets stacked on the layer below it, moves here on the layer below it, and then it goes on. If, however, you do not have a 4th layer or a 3rd layer, or you don't even have a 2nd layer, it will actually just skip all these top combiners and move over on the main bus, which is the output. There's also a final filter over here just to clean up this line quicker. There's a bunch of filters in the whole machine to just make the flushing process just slightly faster. However, it still takes a while to flush, and you can optimize it. It's not optimized, it just works most of the time. And I say most of the time because there are some annoying shapes like this one, for example, or this one, that cannot be made with this machine because they have a very annoying stacking problem, and I just removed that, unfortunately. So we'll have to put that back. All right, let's click the info button. No, it doesn't allow me. Fine, I will just click it here. All right, so what it is, the problem here is that we have a square on the second layer, while on the first layer there's an empty space. If we try to combine these two shapes regularly via two combiners, it will actually put the square in this gap here and complete the shape again on a single layer. To get it on the second layer, you need to use some trickery, like combine a trash shape basically. I can actually show that in one of my machines that I created. This monstrosity over here. There's basically a feeding line of trash shapes we don't need, goes into the machine, gets cut up, and somewhere here it will be combined with the bottom shape. So let's see where that happens. Somewhere here probably. Might already be combined. Yeah, so here the trash shape is coming in. It is combined with bottom left, and so it's now a bottom square. This bottom square is then combined with this half upper white circle, and the right side is a trash shape again. And so if we then see at the output, we can see it is a very ugly shape. But what we do with that is we cut it in half, and then we can see that only the part that we're interested in is left over. Now this trickery can be automated, however that takes even more space and more wiring, and I couldn't be bothered doing that because I haven't come across a automatically generated shape yet that doesn't work. I have been running this machine for a very long time and it hasn't broken. So unless you're making one of these shapes, which you will only make at the beginning anyways, any other shape will work. I believe this shape is even possible, because this doesn't require any holes, because if you fit this shape onto here, it will just stack nicely and work, and it can be made in this machine as well. A couple of more things to note is that the buses that I throw in here are basically just regular shapes, so just star shapes, square shapes, circle shapes, and also windmill shapes, which are kind of tricky because there are not many windmill shapes on the map, and you'll probably just have to build those yourself using combiners. Let me see where actually that, oh yeah, here. So I just took half a windmill and I just cut them up, rotate them and stick them back together in the most efficient way as I could. And I put them all on 8 wide buses. And then what I do is, the first section I take from the first bus, in the second section I take from the second, so I basically swap the first and second line, and so on. So we take shapes from a different bus every time. So if this shape is requiring a lot of circles, and this one is also requiring circles, by the time the circles come here, it's already a very thinned out line and it will slow down the machine. So you want to probably use different buses for each machine. And if you want to be perfect, you should actually do 1 bus per quarter of a shape, because sometimes it's still slow. It seems to be fine right now. Let me actually check here. Yeah, it seems to be fine right now. But if you want to optimize it, I would recommend that you actually use a separate bus for each quarter. Then I'm gonna show you now the technical stuff, the wiring. So if you're not interested in there, well, I don't know why you would be watching this video anyways then, but if you're not interested in any of the technical details, like the wiring, how that's actually set up, then it's probably just the end of the video here, and otherwise I'll just link to the end. But yeah, let's just talk about the wiring. And also, if you wanted to talk, or if you only wanted to know the wiring part, then I will probably also have linked you right here from the start. Either way, let's go to the wiring layer and show you how the wiring works for this monstrosity. So let's just focus on one part of the machine first. So to start off, it takes the shape signal that it's currently requiring from the hub, and it just pushes that signal over a very long line through a thing that I call a shape override transistor. I can just press this button to have a shape overwritten on this line, so I don't have to always produce this, or I can even turn it off if I wanted to. But if we're just not using the machine, it's a waste of the machine anyway, so we can just produce a blueprint shape, so we always need those anyways. But after that, it just basically just transmits this signal over the line to the machine on the bottom and also on the machine on the top. The one on the top is basically just a paint selection, and we reached level 102. The paint selection is very simple. It just goes over here, analyzes the shape after chopping it up into several parts. This is actually the bottommost shape. It checks one corner, the second, third, and fourth corner, and a signal for one of those corners. I'll just show you one corner because it's basically the same for each one. It basically takes this yellow signal through an item filter and just checks, okay, this is cyan, that's not yellow, so it will not flow it through. This is yellow, so it can freely flow through. This is not yellow, so this item filter will block it, as does every other item filter on this line. And so each color is on its separate bus, and using the wire, you can just turn off every other line and turn on the line you need. Also, there is a quick item filter over here, which is extra, but this just helps clean this line out quicker, so it just flushes the system a bit quicker. This helps with optimization. You can also add item filters between each of these to make it even just a slight bit faster, but it will probably not matter much, as the shapes part below is much slower. I also just put these displays that display the item over here every now and then, so we can see what's going on. So yeah, this is the next layer, and yet the other layer, and the topmost layer, I guess. And each of these are just fed down into their respective painter stations, where there's yet another item filter to just speed up with the flushing system, as I said. If the painters, however, are turned off, it will just, of course, skip the shapes, so that's not a problem. Also, this signal will go down to the shapes section. And this is an even more complicated system because the painter station just had to select the paint. And here we have to select a shape, but we also have to do a lot of other logic, so it's not as straightforward. But I'll try to explain it anyways. This signal just comes in and does its merry thing. Here we have another shape unstacker going to another shape unstacker. So this is basically the bottommost layer. It doesn't help that the shape currently on the line is so complicated, but whatever. It goes out here, so you can see which shape it's actually producing here. Then this line just goes over here and basically rotates every time and analyzes the part. It will analyze the color and shape. The color analyzation thing will be just used for the filtering, because the color stuff we do at the top anyways, so we don't really need anything special. Except there is an equal sign here with the gray color. That means if the shape is uncolored, let's see if there's any uncolored pieces on this. Nope. Okay, but if it were uncolored, it will just equal the uncolored color, which is gray. and it will output 1 over this line, which means it will turn this filter on, which basically means the output is not directed to the X, because that's when it's 0 and it goes to the painter, but it will be turned on, and so the shape will just go through this tunnel and to the cutter immediately. And also this color is basically, yeah, this on signal is also transferred up there. If it's the uncolored color, this is basically on, and if this is on, it will just, throw a red signal on this line, which turns this lamp to red. This is a cool, this little section here is a really cool way to just make lamps turn red when the signal is on and green when it's off. If you put this inverter on this side, however, it will just turn the light. This is just for visuals anyways. It will just turn the light to red when the signal's off, and when it were on, it would just turn it to green. But we want it the other way around here, so that's why we use this setup. Alright, that's the first part. It just filters out if it has to be colored or not colored. After painting is done, the shape has to be determined. So we know, okay, this is a circle shape, so it will send over this circle signal, and with the same as the paint, it will just select the circles and put them on the belt, while things that are not a circle are not put on the belt. Makes sense, right? It will also just filter out in the middle as again for flushing reasons. And also this circle shape will travel up the line, do some beautiful maths with logic gates to generate some signals. But before we get into the logic, let's just see where this circle also is going. It goes over here to just filter out even more circles for flushing again. Yeah. So this shape, it looks very complicated where this line is going, but Shapes.io really needs more colored wires and stacked wires, because yeah, then you get this ugly mess and it's horrible explaining. However, I can do a tutorial separate from this that shows you how to build one of these step by step. If you would like to see that, let me know. Anyways, continuing on with the explanation, because I'm unorganized like that. Alright, this circle is going up here. It goes to this OR gate to just, you know, take the spike shape and the circle shape, brings it through the OR gate, brings it through the AND gate. I made an entire truth table for this, and I just worked out the logic for this. And these are the two gates you will need. Just trust me on the maths. It works. So yeah, and also this OR gate goes to an AND gate over here, which is the same over here. And basically these two gate mechanisms make sure that these combiners are turned on or off, because sometimes we don't want to combine left and right shapes. For example, if we only have a bottom right shape and we don't have a bottom left shape, throwing it through a combiner will just make it stuck. So instead, it will just reroute the bottom right shape through this filter, through this tunnel, and I try to keep it compact, not tidy. So it will just merge onto this belt instead of going through this thing and coming into this belt. And then finally, it will combine the top and bottom shapes, of course, here, which is also controlled by a signal right over here, which is the middle AND gate. And so to briefly explain the logic, it's basically, okay, if we have a bottom left shape or a top left shape and a top right shape, if we have them both, it's an AND, right? So in that case, we want to combine them, and it's actually low triggered, so not high triggered, which you would expect. But if this line is 0, it will combine the top and bottom shapes. However, if this is not on, or if this one is not on, if like an AND gate basically means that both signals have to be on. So if either of them is off or both are off, it will basically immediately turn off this combiner because we only have a left or right shape, so we don't need to combine anything. However, for the top and bottom combiner, we need to check if there is some part on the bottom and some part on the top. It doesn't matter which ones, we still have to combine some part of the top and some part of the bottom into a single shape. So we just want to do either top left or the top right, so a plus signal, which is an OR gate, or if they're both on, that's also fine. We want to send a signal to the AND gate. However, if we don't have anything on the right and we don't have anything on the left, there's basically no reason to combine the top with the bottom because there's no top, and it will do the same thing and will stuck the combiners. So if 2 zeros come in this line, or if either of these are 0, it will turn this line off. And this one is actually high enabled, and it's just put into the filter. And instead of going through into this machine on the top, it goes through these tunnels and bypasses this whole system. The reason why this is high activated and this is low activated has nothing to do with anything in particular. It's just these filters. If I had turned this filter into the direction that the X goes into the combiner and the filter side is actually to the bypass, it would have been the other way around. But yeah, it just depends on how you have set up your item filters. So I hope I did like a half decent explanation on this one layer. If not, just leave a comment below with your questions, and if you want to see a tutorial again, just let me know. I might do a tutorial on this, I might not. Really depends if I am capable of making a proper tutorial, but we will see in the future. Okay, let's just continue with the explanation because we're not quite done yet. One more thing is we have, of course, 4 layers, and we also have to detect whenever we don't have a layer. So this line is exactly this input line again. And so we take it to the unstacker and we unstack it 3 times. And basically this turns off whenever there is no layer in a select. So for example, this has 4 layers, so this is on. And if it's on, it will put an on signal on the filter and everything will be thrown into the combiner, which will combine the 3rd and the 4th layer into the last shape. However, if there is no shape, this would turn off, which means it will put a 0 on this line and the items will just bypass the combiner. And there's a nice light indicator again to show you that the machine is on. Finally, we have the output signal go back to the hub. Blah 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 blah. I believe it goes up here, right? No? Oh, you don't see colors in this. Okay, so this is the output signal, and it just goes to the displays over here to show you that the shape is being produced already. Of course, if you can see them over here, it's not really useful. But if the machine is just barely producing these, it's very useful to know, okay, they're being produced and the shape's actually correct. But they're just very far on this line and you can't see them yet. And also there is just a quick equals statement here. We just take the input shape and the output shape, check if they're equal. If that's true, that means we are producing the right shape, or at least we have produced a single shape at some point, and never a shape after that. But this is the last shape that's produced, so it must be producing them and slowly speeding up production. As you can see, it's going faster and faster. And if that's so, it will just put a green signal on this lamp to show you, hey, we're actually producing them. If it's red, we cannot see, and we're not producing the right shape. We might be producing a trash shape. So we'll just actually beautifully demonstrate this going to about 22 per second. It's actually going over because the check is not that thorough. But it should go in a second, right? There you go. The lamp turns red. These signals are not the same, and you can see this is the shape being produced currently, not this shape. So yeah, and this is just a binary counter, which I will probably go over in a next video if you want to see this. This is very cool. It's much more simple than this huge machine that I just shown, except it might be a bit more theoretical and less practical. So yeah, and let me know in the comments if you want to see more tutorials on this, more showcases, or if you have anything in particular you want to see. Maybe you want me to see me build an entire computer. I don't know why you want to see that, but maybe you do. Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you next time. I hope you enjoyed.